All right, welcome. In this explainer, we're diving into a really fascinating modern parable. It's all about art, industry, and, well, the pretty heavy cost of being isolated. This is a story that's going to ask you to listen, but not just with your ears. You're going to need your imagination for this one.
So, our story kicks off in a city that's just buzzing, you know? It's all about the noise of factories and the march of progress. But right in the middle of all that racket, we find this incredibly unusual artist, a guy who's basically a walking silent protest against everything around him.
Okay, so our first section, the Silent Symphony. We meet our guy, the Clockwork Conductor, right in the town square. And get this, he's a huge deal, a celebrated public figure. But what's he doing? He's leading an orchestra that nobody else can hear. That's the core puzzle of his whole life, right? His art is also the very thing that traps him. And, at the beginning, people were totally hooked. I mean, they'd just gather around in complete awe, trying to picture these amazing symphonies he was seemingly plucking out of the air. To them, what he was doing was almost spiritual, like this quiet, beautiful rebellion against the nonstop noise of the city. But what was actually going on in his head? Well, he was convinced he was hearing something celestial, something divine, and that gave him this kind of cold, removed sense of pride. But here's the real kicker, the paradox of it all. Even though he felt so different, so set apart, he absolutely needed people watching him. Their eyes, their attention, that's what made the music feel real to him. So his genius, it was his gift for sure, but it was also his curse, cutting him off from the very world he was performing for. Now, of course, the conductor's art couldn't escape the real world forever. And that's where a character known only as the Warden comes in. The Warden, he's no artist. He's all business. For him, this beautiful, silent symphony wasn't art. It was a product. And time for the Warden was quite literally money. And this slide just lays out the conflicts perfectly. For the conductor, music was this endless stream, something that could go on for days, maybe even months. But for the Warden, nope, he had a stopwatch out. For him, it was a 40-minute show, a neat little package to keep the audience from getting bored. Their entire partnership was just built on them having zero common ground on what this art even was. So things start to change. The world around the conductor is getting louder, and the roar of industry is about to completely overwhelm his silent symphony. Right, so progress shows up, and it sounds like massive, clanging steam engines. The beat of the city is now this heavy, rhythmic thumping of machines. And all of a sudden, nobody has the patience to just stand there and imagine music anymore. They want something real, something loud, something they can feel. And his downfall, it's just this slow, heartbreaking process. He goes from being this visionary artist everyone celebrated to being completely ignored. Then they literally move him. They shove him into this forgotten corner of a transit station. He becomes a ghost, basically, waving his arms for busy commuters who don't even notice he's there. But here's the fascinating part. The more the world tuned him out, the louder the music inside his head became. His movements get more frantic, more desperate. At this point, in total isolation, it's not even a performance anymore. It's his only reality. It's like he built himself a fortress of sound to hide from a world that was all cold, hard steel. Okay, so this all comes to a head one cold winter evening. A young porter makes a discovery. And it's a discovery that's going to flip everything we thought we know about the conductor completely on its head. So the porter finds him slumped against a pillar, almost gone. And his baton, the symbol of his entire life's work, is snapped in two. It really looks like the final note has just been played. The porter leans in close, probably thinking, wow, did he just finish his masterpiece? Was that the big finale? But no, in his last moments, the conductor doesn't talk about heavenly music. Instead, he makes this absolutely shocking confession that changes everything. He says, I only led an invisible orchestra because I had never found a single instrument on Earth that played in a key I could tolerate. Think about that. His art wasn't about hearing some special divine music. It was about avoiding sound. It was all a defense mechanism because he literally couldn't stand the sounds of the real world. Yeah, his entire life was spent conducting the air because real sounds, instruments, people talking, machines, it all felt like physical pain to him. His silent symphony wasn't a performance for others. It was his personal escape from a reality that was, to him, just unbearable noise. So now we get to the aftermath. After the conductor dies, does the world mourn? Nope, they waste zero time. His little quiet corner in the station gets repurposed almost immediately for something way louder and, in the city's opinion, way more useful. The very next morning, they install this massive automated steam whistle right where he used to stand. A machine now roars where a man once created silence. It's the final nail in the coffin, really, the absolute victory of function over form, of utility over art.
And why was everyone okay with this? Well, just look at what the whistle offered. It was loud, it was clear, it had authority. You didn't have to interpret it or use your imagination, it just was. It gave people practical certainty. Unlike the conductor's art, the whistle was simple and it demanded absolutely nothing from them. And they were perfectly happy with that. Which brings us to the big takeaway. What does this whole parable mean? What is this tragic story really trying to tell us about art, artists, and the world they have to live in? Well, at its heart, this is a story about the clash between an artist's own rigid perfectionism and a society that just values output over essence. His intense sensitivity basically made him incompatible with the world. He was a perfectionist looking for a perfect sound in a world that didn't care about perfection. It just wanted a loud, clear signal. So in the end, his art wasn't a gift to the world at all. It was a barrier, a cage he built to protect himself from the world. A really intricate, beautiful cage made of rhythm, but a cage nonetheless. His masterpiece was really a monologue, a song that could never be shared, because its whole purpose was to reject any and all listeners.
And this is where we see some amazing parallels to other stories, especially Kafka's A Hunger Artist. Let's just break this down. First, you've got the warden with his stopwatch. That's a direct parallel to the impresario in Kafka's story who sets the 40-day limit. It's the market commodifying art, putting a time limit and a price on it. Then you have the steam whistle that replaces our conductor. That's just like the panther that replaces the hunger artist. Society moves on to something more powerful, more visceral, easier to digest. And finally, the most telling part. The conductor finding reality discordant is the exact same theme as the hunger artist not being able to find food he liked. In both cases, their art, or sacrifice, isn't for the audience. It's a reaction to a world they find completely inhospitable.
So, in the end, the parable leaves us with this really deep, lingering question. Was he a martyr for some higher truth, a genius who sacrificed everything for his art? Or was he just a tragic guy, trapped by his own senses, lost in a silence he created and could never escape from? The answer to that, well, maybe you can find it somewhere in the quiet moments of your own life.